judging people. This is one that doesn't matter if you're an atheist or not an atheist. Everybody goes through it, and most people know the implications of it. Jesus once said that, do not judge and thou wilt not be judged. Do not condemn and thou wilt not be condemned. So a lot of my Christians and brothers and sisters will try to switch it up with what Paul says in Corinthians about how, we shouldn't judge other Christians. Then he literally, a paragraph later, says that we should judge Christians. I won't get into all that too deeply because everybody will have their own opinion of it. For me, nothing against Brother Paul, but I take what Jesus said. If I'm going to take anything out of that book, it's only the red letters. So Jesus says, do not judge or you will be judged. Do not condemn and you won't be condemned. We all judge people. We all do it. Fortunately, a lot of people in faith do it a lot more than most people I know. It's another one of those nails in the coffin for me for leaving the church, because no matter the different churches that I tried, I saw it everywhere. It ran rampant. I mean, didn't matter if it was a fundamentalist, Southern Baptist, Quaker. Well, not Quakers. I got to give the Quakers credit. They don't ever say anything. Quakers are actually pretty interesting. Sorry about the bike. I'm judging that guy on the bike because he doesn't have to have a loud bike. But anyways, yeah. I find that, especially when I was in the faith, that, I would be talking to somebody and then people would literally judge me in front of me. Like, they would tell it to me, like, oh, well, you shouldn't read that, or you shouldn't talk about that, or you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, or you shouldn't do that. It's like, yeah, I already had parents. I don't really need parents anymore. Thanks. But I think a lot of people kind of, they lay heavily on what Paul says, and, basically the churches are all Pauline churches anyways, whether they're Catholic or Christian, they all go off Paul. You walk in any Protestant church on a Sunday afternoon, you're most likely going to hear something from the epistles or the letters, whatever. You're not going to really hear the words in red, so it's just sad. But anyways, judgment. We all judge people. You're judging me right now as you're sitting here listening to my funny voice. Now I'm judging you, thinking that you probably have nothing better to do but listen to my silly voice. We all go around, we're all hypocrites, which is something that's going to come up in another video, because there is a difference. But we all judge people, we judge everything, and we judge all people. And there's nothing wrong with judging people. It's a very slippery slope. Most of us judge, and I'm going to say all of us judge people, and we think we're judging them because of what they're doing is hurting themselves or hurting others. But in reality, we're judging them because we do it to make ourselves feel better. Like, I heard people at church would say, oh, can you believe she's wearing that to church? And it's like, are you judging her, or are you just mad because she's got a really nice outfit on and you're just wearing the same thing you wore last week? We all do it. I do it. I judge. I say, man, whatever, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. He can't figure out. Or am I really just saying, yeah, that's just pride right there, because I'm like, oh, I can do it better. But can I really? It's a slippery slope. I mean, we judge people for the silliest little things. Religion's going to come up a lot in this because that's where I saw it the most. Like, I'm 49 years old and I lived, all my life. Yeah, I've seen plenty of people judge other people, but I saw a lot of it in the last 3 years going through religion. And it's sad, really. If you're a Christian and you're listening, I apologize, but at the same time, I'm sure you see it too. So I think, Jesus makes a good point, because he says, thou shalt not judge, thou shalt not condemn. They're two different things. And I find that with a lot of the judgment that I witnessed, people were condemning them. We see it all the time when, you see that church that's on the news and they're yelling, all gays are going to hell and blah, blah. Well, for one thing, you're judging them, and at the same time, you're condemning them. And that's kind of an extreme. I think that's the Westboro Church or whatever. They go a little too far. And I have looked into them, and I'm like, well, how do they judge if they're a Christian church? And it's because they pull in the Pauline thought on it. But even then, Paul is talking about other Christians. He's not talking about other people. Paul literally says, don't worry about people outside the church. So that whole thing is a cluster F to try to even get into, when people try to say, oh yeah, that person's going to hell because they're gay, or that person's going to hell because they do this or they do that against God's will, blah, blah. It's like, well, you're judging them and you're condemning them. You're doing both the things that Jesus literally said not to do. And you can try to say, well, Paul said this, or Peter said this, or John said this, or Toby, or Frank, or whoever the heck else is out there in the text that nobody even knows about. I don't know if there's a Toby, but still, you're not supposed to do it. And even if you're an atheist, you shouldn't do it. And I know plenty of atheists that know this, that they know they shouldn't judge people, because it will generally affect you as well. Because all it does is it turns you into a pessimist. If you just go around judging everybody for their mistakes or their faults without really knowing the true story, or ever, I hate to use the cliche term of walking in their shoes, then you shouldn't be doing it. And all that's doing is it's feeding up your pride and your ego, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm better than he is, and blah, blah, but you're not. Because one, you're judging him, condemning him, and two, you're building up something that's just going to bring you down eventually. Ego's for a whole nother time, but judgment is dangerous, whether you are a faith believer or not a faith believer. Judging others is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for general society, and if you want proof of that, look around you. Turn on the news. You'll see it. That's the problem too, is that it's not just you and me. It's not just the listener and the guy speaking on YouTube. It's people that are in charge of the world that judge others. Oh, North Korea guy, he's batshit crazy. We got to get rid of him, blah, blah. Well, Donald Trump talked to him. I ain't propping Donald Trump up, but he talked to him and quieted him down for a couple of years. But you guys are just right out the bat judging him. Same thing with the recent UFO, whatever the hell they call them now, UAPs hearing that they had. The whole thing was a 3-hour show of nothingness. And the very end, they said, do you think we need more weapons and more money for secret programs to go against the aliens in case they attack? And they were all like, yes. And it's like, so right off the bat, you're judging the aliens too. That's not good. It's just a perfect example of that real quick is, say they're not hostile. Obviously if they were, they would have already done something, but if you keep on shooting at them like Joe did a couple of months ago, that might be a bad thing. Anyways, that's a little off script, but you get my gist, I hope. We judge everything. We judge the silliest things because it goes along with what I talked about in another video about fear and hate. We fear and we hate things because we don't understand them. And when you judge others, it's because you most likely don't understand where they're coming from. I have one of my good friends is a Buddhist, and she judges people all the time. So but she does recognize it. We've had this discussion. She actually recognizes it, just like I recognize it, just like hopefully you recognize it, and is working on ways around it. But everybody does it, But just because one man in the book says that it's okay to do it to a certain amount of, or a certain sect of people, doesn't mean that you can do it to everybody. Nobody, no Christian, as far as I'm concerned, from reading what I've read, the words of Jesus himself, your Savior, should be going around telling anybody that they're going to hell for what they're doing. You should not be judging and condemning people. I don't care. I understand if they're sleeping with the pastor, which happens more times than most people want to admit, or whatever, you can confront them and you can say this is bad, blah, blah. But if you just instead judge them behind their back, even if you don't tell anybody else, even if you're just doing it by yourself behind their back, you're doing exactly what your Savior tells you not to do. And hopefully what your conscience tells you not to do. So I kind of get off on a rant on that, but it's that deep. I definitely judge people before religion, and I judge people after religion. I judge people during religion. I was not a saint. Those people would say things like that, and it would make me either mad or sad or I confused. But I still did it myself too. I never got in their little circles and talked. I was pretty much a loner in church. I went there for the word, and that was it. So I didn't want to get into the cliques or anything like that. So if any of this made any sense to anybody wants to put in a comment on what they think about judgment or what it means, or if you want to point me in the right direction for more reading on the subject, I would really appreciate it. I've read a lot on it. I've read a lot on a lot of the things I talk about. I read a lot about it. But there are definitely things that I haven't seen or experienced. So if any of you have any ideas or anything, comments, I don't even care if you're Christian, you want to debate it, or any faith you want to debate it. If you're willing to do it as adults, I'm more than willing to do it back. So Have a great night. I'm not judging you. I'm thanking you if you survived this long through the whole thing. Have a great night. I love you all.